Emily woke up to the soft morning light filtering through the curtains in her room. The sound of the alarm clock echoed in the space, but something felt off. She turned to her side, searching for the presence of Jake, her older brother, who was supposed to have come home the night before. His bed was empty, and the silence that filled the room felt heavier than usual. With a tightness in her chest, she grabbed her phone and called him, but the call went straight to voicemail. "Where are you, Jake?" she thought, a growing concern beginning to settle in her mind. Quickly throwing on a t-shirt and a pair of jeans, Emily headed down the stairs of the house where they grew up. The smell of freshly brewed coffee wafted through the air, but the atmosphere was tense. Her parents were in the living room, each lost in their own thoughts, but worry was etched on their faces. "He didn't come home again," her dad said, his voice heavy with frustration. "This isn't normal anymore, Mary. He needs to understand he can't keep doing this." Mary, her mom, shook her head, her eyes filled with tears. "Jake has always been responsible. Something must have happened." Emily stepped closer, trying to steer the conversation away from an argument. "Mom, maybe he just went to a party and forgot to tell us. He always does that." But deep down, she knew it was more than that. Jake had been increasingly distant, and his absence now felt like a terrifying echo. "We need to go to the police," Emily decided, determination taking over. "We have to do something." Her dad looked at her with a skeptical expression. "Do you really think they're going to care about a kid who probably just got lost at some party?" The frustration in his voice was palpable, but Emily couldn't let that discourage her. "He's my brother. I know he needs help." With her heart racing, Emily grabbed the car keys. "I'm going. If you don't want to come, that's fine, but I'm not going to sit here waiting for news." Without waiting for a response, she left the house, determined to do whatever it took. The drive to the police station felt longer than usual, each red traffic light only amplifying her anxiety. When she arrived, she faced the receptionist, a middle-aged woman who seemed bored with the monotony of her day. "Hi, I'd like to report my brother missing," Emily said, her voice trembling slightly. The receptionist raised an eyebrow, looking at her. "Missing? Are you sure he's not just out and about? A lot of young people do that." The woman's insensitivity irritated her. "He's not like that. He should be home. I haven't seen him in over 12 hours. The receptionist sighed, visibly uninterested. "I'll need more information. What's his name?" Emily took a deep breath, trying to control her frustration. "Jake. Jake Thompson. He's 22, and he doesn't usually stay out like this. I'm worried." The receptionist jotted down the information, but her expression remained skeptical. "I'll pass this along, but I can't promise we'll have a quick response." Desolate, Emily left the station, feeling a mix of helplessness and despair. The pressure in her chest was almost unbearable. What was happening to Jake? What could he be facing? The questions haunted her as she drove back home, feeling like with every passing minute, the chances of finding him were slipping away. What could have been a simple night out had turned into a nightmare, and Emily was determined to uncover the truth, no matter what it cost. Emily sat at the kitchen table, her gaze fixed on the coffee cup that was slowly cooling. Morning had arrived, but the restlessness in her heart seemed to have settled there, relentless. The silence in the house was deafening. Her parents had isolated themselves in their own worlds of worry and denial, and she knew she couldn't wait any longer. The only way to understand what had happened to Jake was to take action. The idea of seeking answers from his friends made her nervous, but the urge to discover the truth outweighed her fear. After a quick shower and throwing on a worn jacket, Emily decided she would go to the local bar where Jake used to hang out. His friends were her only hope. Upon arriving at the bar, the familiar smell of beer and fried food filled the air. She took a deep breath and walked in, the sound of laughter and conversation enveloping the space. But as soon as her eyes adjusted to the dim light, she noticed the atmosphere was different. There was a tension in the air, and conversations hushed as she walked by. "Emily," one of Jake's friends, Lucas, exclaimed as he stood up from a table. "What are you doing here?" "Hey, Lucas. I need to talk to you about Jake, she replied, trying to sound confident. The expression on Lucas's face changed instantly, and he looked around at the others at the table, clearly hesitant. I don't know if that's a good idea. Please, Lucas. I just want to know where he is, Emily insisted, her voice trembling slightly. Lucas hesitated but eventually nodded. All right. But I can't promise you'll like what you hear. As they stepped away from the group, Emily felt her heart race. What do you know about him? Have you talked to him recently? Lucas looked around, as if fearing someone might overhear. He was getting involved with dangerous people, Emily. I didn't want to believe it, but he was. Dangerous how? What do you mean? Emily pressed, forcing the words out. A drug cartel. I don't know all the details, but he was trying to back away. Things were getting complicated for him. Lucas's voice was low, almost a whisper. Emily felt a chill run down her spine. A cartel? Jake never mentioned anything like that to me. He was just trying to have fun. How did he get mixed up in this? He didn't want this, I know, but sometimes things spiral out of control. He was scared, Emily. And it's not just that. The threats were constant, Lucas said, his eyes filled with worry. We need to find Alex, Emily said, determined. He was close to Jake. If anyone knows something, it's him. Alex. Do you really want to talk to him? He's been different, Lucas warned. I have no choice, Emily replied, already heading for the exit. After a few twists and turns, she finally found Alex at a bar further away, a place where Jake used to meet friends. As she walked in, she spotted Alex sitting in a corner, looking older than his years. His eyes were tired, and the unshaven beard gave him a disheveled appearance. Alex, Emily called, approaching him. He lifted his head, and a mix of recognition and fear crossed his face. Emily, what are you doing here? ####, we need to talk about Jake, she said, sitting down across from him. Alex hesitated, glancing around before responding. I don't know if that's a good idea. You have no idea who you're dealing with. I don't care. He's my brother, and I need to know the truth, Emily declared, resolute. He was trying to distance himself from those things, but it's not that simple. The people he met, they're dangerous. He's gotten himself into deep trouble, Alex explained, his voice trembling. Why didn't anyone tell me this before? I can help him, Alex. We need to find him, Emily said, her determination growing. It's risky. You have no idea what you're getting into, Alex warned, but the worry in his eyes showed he was also willing to help. I have no choice. If Jake is in danger, I need to do something. Are you going to help me or not? Emily challenged, determined not to back down. Alex took a deep breath, as if weighing his options. All right. Let's find out what happened, but you need to be prepared. What you discover might be more than you can handle. Emily nodded, feeling a mix of fear and courage. She knew that the search for Jake would lead her into dark places, but there was no turning back. The truth was out there, and she was ready to face it. Emily and Alex were searching Jake's apartment with a mix of hope and apprehension. Sunlight filtered through the faded curtains, casting long shadows on the floor. The place was tidy, but Jake's absence was palpable, like a presence that couldn't be ignored. However, every corner seemed to hold a secret, and that was what they were after. Look at this, Alex exclaimed, holding up a blurred photo with a trembling hand. His gaze fixed on the figures surrounding Jake. Her brother was at a party, surrounded by faces Emily didn't recognize but that exuded danger. This isn't good, she thought, a cold knot forming in her stomach. Who are these people? Emily asked, trying to control the anxiety rising within her. I don't know, but they don't look like real friends, Alex replied, his voice low, almost a whisper. He turned the photo over, and the scrawled words on the back caught his attention. Watch who you trust. That gives me the creeps, Emily frowned, the feeling that Jake was more involved with the criminal world than she wanted to believe consuming her. What else was he hiding? With a surge of determination, she began opening the drawers of the desk. In one of them, she found a folded, cryptic note. The paper was yellowed, and the hurried handwriting seemed urgent. "Emily, did you find something?" Alex called out, his gaze fixed on a disorganized shelf. "Yes, but I don't know what it means," Emily said, unfolding the note before him. "If you really want to get out, don't look back. They won't let you." "This is serious," Alex murmured, realizing the gravity of the situation. Jake was scared. At that revelation, Emily felt her heart race. Jake, her protective older brother, was now revealing a side she never imagined. With trembling hands, she decided she couldn't stop there. "We need to keep looking," she said, more to encourage herself than to convince Alex. As they continued their search, something under the rug caught Emily's attention. She bent down and pulled out a small diary. The cover was worn, but the presence of the diary seemed promising. With an anxious look, she opened it and began to read aloud. "If you're reading this, it's because I couldn't get out. I'm trapped in something I don't know how to escape." Emily's voice trembled as the words unfolded. Alex stepped closer, his eyes glued to the pages. "What else does he say?" "The life I led isn't the one I wanted. My friends, the parties. It's all a facade. I'm scared." The emotion in Emily's voice was undeniable. She wasn't just uncovering her brother's secrets, she was discovering his fragility. "He was struggling," Alex commented, looking at Emily with a mix of compassion and concern. "He wasn't just a criminal, he felt trapped." Emily felt a wave of sadness wash over her. "I didn't know. He seemed so confident, so sure. Now I see he was carrying a weight I never noticed." Continuing to read, she found passages revealing Jake's dilemma between the life his family expected and the reality he lived. Each line felt like a dagger to her heart. "If I could go back, I would have done everything differently. I didn't want this life. But now, I'm tangled up and don't know how to get out." Tears streamed down Emily's face as she finished the last page. "We need to find him," Alex asserted, determination rising in his tone. "He needs help." Emily closed the diary with a firm gesture, the pain transforming into a flame of resolve. "I won't leave my brother behind. He's not just a victim. He's my brother. And I will uncover the truth, no matter the cost." The two exchanged glances, united by a purpose that made them stronger. The search for Jake was just beginning, and the secrets in the shadows were about to be unveiled. Emily sat at the kitchen table, watching her parents as they whispered in hushed tones. The tension in the air was palpable, like a storm ready to break. The smell of fresh coffee mixed with the aroma of toasted bread, but none of it comforted her. The truth she had discovered about Jake weighed heavily on her heart, and she needed to share it with her parents, but feared their reaction. "He's not the type of kid who just disappears without reason. Jake has always been responsible," her father said, his voice taut with worry. "He must just be having fun." "You don't understand," her mother replied, her eyes welling up. "He's been so distant these past few weeks. Something's not right." Taking a deep breath, Emily resolved to intervene. "Mom, Dad, I found some things in his apartment. Things that change everything." Her voice trembled, but she struggled to sound strong. Her parents' eyes locked onto her, filled with expectation and dread. "What did you find, Emily?" her father asked, his expression that of a man bracing for a storm. "Jake was involved with a drug cartel." The words came out as a whisper, but they sliced through the kitchen silence like a sharp blade. The atmosphere froze. Her mother's breath quickened, and her father turned pale as snow. "No, that can't be true," her mother exclaimed, standing up abruptly. "He's a good kid. He can't be mixed up with those kinds of people." "I know what I'm saying," Emily insisted, frustration welling inside her. "I found a diary he was hiding." He was scared, trying to pull away, but the threats were constant. He wasn't just a kid out for a good time. He was sinking into something much deeper. The silence that followed was deafening. Emily noticed the tension in her father's shoulders, as he seemed to be fighting against denial. You can't believe this. We need to think positively, Emily. Jake might have drifted away a bit, but that doesn't mean he's in danger. It's not just that. I need support to understand what's happening. We need to do something, Emily said, urgency evident in her voice. If you're so sure about this, then what do you plan to do? Her father asked, incredulity mingling with desperation. I want to investigate further. And I need Alex's help. He was Jake's friend and might know more about what was really going on. The idea of getting involved with Alex made her uneasy, but she knew it was the only way to dig deeper into the truth. No, Emily, her mother interjected, her voice raised. This is dangerous. You can't get involved with those criminals. I can't just sit here while my brother is missing. What if he's in danger? What else can I do? Emily's determination was unwavering, but it only fueled her parents' frustration. You can't put your life at risk because of his choices, her father warned, though his eyes revealed a vulnerability that only confirmed his concern. Please, don't do this. I need to know the truth, Dad, Emily shouted, feeling anger swell within her. If you can't support me, then I'll do this on my own. She stood up from the table, resolute in her plan. Rage and sadness consumed her, but a part of her knew she had to proceed. The conversation with her parents hadn't gone as she hoped, but she couldn't give up. Alex's words echoed in her mind. If you really care about Jake, you can't stop now. The pressure inside her mounted, but her determination to uncover the truth outweighed her fear. She needed Alex by her side, and even knowing she was about to get involved in something dangerous, she was willing to risk everything for Jake. The love she felt for her brother was stronger than any warning, propelling her to plunge into the shadows in search of answers. Emily was determined to discover the truth about Jake's disappearance, but with each step she took, the sense of danger intensified. On that particular day, she and Alex met at a roadside cafe, a place they chose for its discretion and distance from prying eyes. Tension hung in the air as they discussed their next steps. We need more information about the cartel. We can't just rely on rumors, Emily said, her voice low but firm. Alex's eyes, reflecting concern, were fixed on the window beside them, as if expecting some sign to appear. Yeah, but how? We don't have any contacts in that world, Alex replied, running his hand through his hair, a gesture that had become habitual when he was anxious. What if we tried to reach out to that informant you mentioned? Emily hesitated. The idea of contacting someone so close to the criminal underworld made her uneasy. Do you think he'll want to talk to us? We're dealing with dangerous people. We won't get another chance if we don't try, Alex insisted. The determination in his gaze ignited a flicker of hope within Emily. If he's willing to help us, he could be key to finding Jake. After a brief silence, she nodded in agreement. Okay, let's do it. A few hours later, they met at a designated spot, a dark and isolated parking lot where the light barely illuminated the shadows. The informant, a worn-looking man with a furtive glance, appeared out of nowhere, like a ghost. He seemed nervous, constantly looking around as if he feared being watched. You shouldn't be here, the man said, his voice low and drawn out as he approached. This is dangerous. We need information about Jake, Emily said quickly, trying to hide the tremor in her voice. He got involved with the cartel, and we need to know what happened to him. The informant hesitated, shaking his head. You don't know who you're dealing with. The cartel doesn't play around. They won't let you get close to Jake unless you have something to offer. We don't have money, Alex interjected, his tone firm. We're here to help. We want to know the truth. The man scrutinized them, weighing his options. The truth. The truth can be costly. And this information you want. It could cost you your lives. Emily felt a chill in her stomach, but her determination to find her brother overshadowed her fear. We're willing to take risks. Please, just tell us what you know. A heavy silence settled between them. The informant, looking as if he were battling with his own decisions, finally spoke. The cartel is watching you. If you keep digging, you're putting yourselves in danger. Jake. He got himself into something he can't escape. And there are people who won't let that happen. Those words echoed in Emily's mind. What could be more dangerous than what they were already facing? What do you mean by that? She pressed. I can only say that if you don't stop looking, you might just already have lost Jake forever, the informant replied, his voice barely a whisper. Those words weighed like lead on Emily's heart. She felt adrenaline coursing through her veins, but also a sense of despair. We can't give up. I won't stop until I find my brother. You don't understand. The cartel, they have eyes everywhere. A warning has already been given. If you don't stop now, the next visit might be for you, the man said, his expression growing increasingly worried. Emily exchanged a nervous glance with Alex, who shook his head slowly, as if he knew the situation was becoming more serious than they had imagined. We can't just ignore this, he said, trying to be rational. We need to protect ourselves. But Emily's determination was stronger than any warning. I can't go home without knowing what happened to Jake, she declared, her voice resolute. The informant finally turned to leave, but before disappearing into the shadows, he cast one last look at them. Be careful. The truth may be more than you can bear, he murmured, vanishing into the darkness. Emily stood there, paralyzed, as the weight of the informant's words enveloped her. What was she supposed to do now? The idea of stopping the search was unimaginable, but the reality that they were being followed and monitored haunted her. What was at stake was bigger than she could imagine, and the race against time had turned into a battle for survival. Emily sat in her small room, the dim light of the desk lamp illuminating the pages of Jake's diary. His words danced in her mind, each sentence an echo of pain and confusion. She had read almost everything, but there was still so much to process. The truth forming before her was a dark and complicated mosaic. What else could Jake have hidden? It was then that, on a whim, she decided to go through the photos she had found in his apartment. Most showed Jake with friends and family, but some were different. He was with people she didn't recognize, faces marked by the harshness of life on the streets. Emily frowned as she noticed Jake's expression in the images. There was something there that didn't fit, a smile that seemed forced, eyes that spoke of unspoken secrets. I need to know more, she murmured to herself, determined not to leave any stone unturned. The idea that her brother was involved with a drug cartel left her distressed, but she knew she had to face that truth. It was the only way to understand what really happened. The next day, she met Alex at a local cafe. The place was empty, except for a few distracted customers and the barista making an espresso. Emily looked at Alex, noticing the worry on his face. He seemed nervous, restless, as if the pressure of the situation was weighing heavily on his shoulders. Did you find anything else? Alex asked, leaning forward, his voice low. Emily nodded, pulling Jake's diary from her bag. This is where it all began. He was struggling with something much bigger than we imagined. What if we found someone who knew more about him? Someone from his past? Alex suggested, his gaze fixed on the diary. I thought about that. But who? We need someone who really knew Jake and isn't afraid to talk, Emily replied, frustration growing inside her. What if we tried to find those he distanced himself from? It could be risky, but it's an option, Alex pondered, biting his lower lip as he considered the consequences. We need to do this, Emily decided, determination replacing her uncertainty. I can't stop now. Jake needs me. After a few hours of searching, Emily and Alex ended up on a dimly lit street where one of Jake's acquaintances used to hang out. The place had a heavy atmosphere, and the smell of smoke and alcohol lingered in the air. They were about to enter a bar when Alex grabbed Emily's wrist, his expression shifting from nervous to alarmed. Are you sure you want to do this? He questioned, a note of concern in his voice. These people won't hesitate to do harm if they think we're sticking our noses where they don't belong. I'm not the girl who was afraid to know the truth anymore, Emily replied firmly, her eyes shining with renewed determination. Jake needs me. I can't pull back now. As they entered, The loud music and murmur of voices enveloped them. Alex searched for a corner where they could talk without being noticed. Meanwhile, Emily scanned the room, trying to identify familiar faces, but she found only strangers more interested in their own problems. There, Alex pointed discreetly to a scruffy-haired man with a shifty gaze sitting at a table in the back. He used to be a friend of Jake's. Let's talk to him. Emily took a deep breath and walked toward the man, her heart racing. As she approached, she sensed the tension in the atmosphere, as if everyone in the bar could feel that something important was about to happen. Sorry to bother you, Emily began, her voice steady, though slightly trembling. You knew Jake, right? The man looked at her, distrust evident in his eyes. Who wants to know? I'm his sister. He disappeared, and I need to know what happened, she said, urgency lacing her voice. Please, any information you have could help me. The man hesitated, glancing around as if weighing the risks of speaking. Jake. He was in trouble. If you really are his sister, then you should know that this isn't a game. I know he was involved in dangerous things, Emily pressed, trying not to let her frustration show. But I need to understand what's happening with him. He tried to get out, but it's not easy. They don't let you go that easily, the man replied, his voice low. And now you're here, sticking your nose into something that could cost you dearly. I'm not afraid, Emily declared, even as fear began to seep into her mind. She couldn't back down now. Jake needed her. As they talked, a haunting thought crossed her mind. What if, in searching for answers, she was putting not only her own life at risk but also Alex's? She looked at him and saw that he was worried too, but there was a spark of determination in his eyes. We need to find out where he is, Emily insisted, her voice stronger. Please, help us. The man stared at her for a long, tense moment, then slowly nodded. All right. But you need to understand that this is dangerous. It's not just about finding out where he is. You might regret asking. And as his words sunk in, Emily knew she was getting closer to the truth, but also to an abyss from which she might not be able to return. Emily and Alex found themselves in an abandoned warehouse, the walls covered in graffiti and weak light filtering through broken windows. The place exuded an air of neglect, but also of imminent danger. Emily's heart raced, not just from the adrenaline of the search but from the anxiety of knowing they were about to confront one of Jake's old associates. Are you sure he'll show up? Alex asked, glancing around suspiciously. He said he would come. We need to know what happened to Jake, Emily replied, trying to keep her voice steady, though uncertainty dominated her. She felt like time was running out, and with each passing minute, the pressure mounted. The two positioned themselves in a corner where they could watch the entrance. Alex, seeming calmer than Emily felt, looked at her and said, Remember, if things go wrong, we need to get out fast. We can't take any risks. She nodded but couldn't shake the fear that was creeping over her. What they were about to do was risky, but the need to uncover the truth about her brother propelled her forward. The ground creaked beneath their feet as they waited, and the silence grew increasingly oppressive. Suddenly, a shadow approached the entrance. #####, a tall man, with a dark hood covering his face, entered the warehouse. He looked around before approaching, his posture tense. You're here. What do you want? His voice was low, almost a whisper, but it carried an underlying threat. We're looking for information about Jake. We need to know where he is, Emily replied, trying to sound confident. The man assessed her, his cold, calculating eyes narrowing before he let out a sarcastic laugh. You think I'm some kind of information delivery service? What do you have to offer? We're not here to negotiate. Jake might be in danger, Alex interjected, urgency in his voice. He got involved in something he can't control. We need help. The man hesitated for a moment, weighing the sincerity in the young people's eyes. And what if I told you he made his choices? That he got mixed up with people who don't forgive? He was trying to get out. He regretted it, Emily exclaimed, her frustration rising. Please, we just want to know if he's okay. If you know anything, the man's expression hardened. You don't understand. Once you enter this world, There's no way out. Jake made his choices, and now he has to face the consequences. A heavy silence followed, and Emily felt her heart freeze. The reality of the situation was becoming clearer. The man was right. Jake had put himself in a dangerous position. Please, she insisted, if you know where he is, tell us. We don't want to cause trouble. We just want to bring him back. At that moment, the warehouse lights abruptly went out, plunging them into darkness. The sound of heavy footsteps echoed, and the tension in the air escalated. You shouldn't be here, a deep, menacing voice resonated, sending a chill down Emily's spine. Cartel members were here, and they were in trouble. Get out of the way, the man who had approached them shouted, pushing Emily and Alex aside as he tried to move away. You have no idea what you're doing. We need to get out of here, Alex shouted, pulling Emily by the hand. As they began to run toward the exit, cartel members appeared like shadows, their intentions clear. Stop. Don't let them escape, one of them yelled, and the footsteps intensified behind them. Emily felt panic rising, but the determination to find Jake outweighed her fear. With each step, she was more aware that they were getting closer to the truth, but also increasingly in danger. Right. Quick. Alex shouted, and they veered into a side corridor. The sound of voices and footsteps approached, and Emily's heart was racing. They needed a plan, but time was running out. Emily was paralyzed by the revelation she had just received. The discovery that one of the cartel members had connections to her family left her reeling. She felt as if she were in a nightmare from which she couldn't escape. The pieces of the puzzle were starting to fit together in a disturbing way, and the idea that her own father could be involved in something so dark made her feel a wave of nausea. She decided to confront her parents. The tension in the room was palpable as Emily faced them, her heart racing. We need to talk, she said, her voice trembling but determined. About Jake and the cartel. Her mother's eyes widened, and her father frowned, as if struck by lightning. What are you talking about, Emily? Her father's voice sounded firm, but there was an underlying nervousness that didn't go unnoticed. I found out that one of the cartel members is someone we know. And that Jake was trying to protect us. What else aren't you telling me? Anger and pain mingled in her voice as she tried to maintain her composure. You're wrong, dear. Your brother got involved with the wrong people, and that's all we know, her mother replied, her expression a mix of concern and denial. But Emily wouldn't be deceived by empty words. No. I saw the documents, saw the photos. Jake was caught in something much bigger than we ever imagined. And if he was trying to protect us, it means something very wrong was happening, Emily insisted, her voice rising in pitch. Why didn't you tell me the truth? The silence that followed was deafening. Her father, who had always been her anchor, seemed to lose his strength. He turned away, as if contemplating how to respond. Emily, we didn't want you to worry. Jake was dealing with his own problems and you were aware of it? Emily interrupted, her eyes misty. How could you let this happen? He was getting involved in something dangerous, and you knew. It wasn't like that. We were trying to protect you too, her father replied, his voice now weaker. He looked at his wife, seeking support, but she merely shook her head, reluctant. Protect. That's not protection. That's lying and manipulation. Emily's indignation was palpable, and she felt her life crumbling. Jake was in danger, and you knew it. He surrendered to this to keep us safe, and now I don't know who I can trust. Her mother's expression changed, and she hesitated before speaking. Emily, it's not that simple. Your father was trying to handle these situations. He had his own reasons. What reasons? Emily demanded, her heart racing. Why didn't you tell me before? I could have helped. I could have done something. Because we didn't want you to get involved in this life. It was too dangerous, her father replied, his voice now a whisper. We wanted you to have a normal life, away from all this. Normal. Emily laughed, but there was no humor in her laugh. Nothing in my life is normal. I just wanted to understand my brother, And now this, she turned away, feeling a cold rage build inside her. Emily, please listen, her mother began, but Emily didn't want to hear any more. Every word coming out of her parents' mouths felt like an attempt to cover up the truth, and she was unwilling to accept it. She took a deep breath, trying to hold back the tears. I can't stay here. I need to find the truth on my own. If Jake was really trying to protect us, I have to find him and understand what happened. No, don't do that, her father protested, but Emily's determination was unwavering. The desire to understand her brother consumed her. You left me in the dark, and now I'm going to seek the light, she said, her voice firm. If you can't help me, then I'll do this alone. Emily left the house feeling more lost than ever, but at the same time, a new determination surged within her. The lies surrounding her family were deeper than she could ever imagine. But now, more than ever, she was determined to uncover each one of them. Emily and Alex found themselves in a place that felt like a nightmare scene. The air was thick, and sunlight barely penetrated the dirty windows of the abandoned warehouse. Emily's heart raced in a mix of fear and hope. They had followed a lead that brought them to Jake, and now they were about to discover what really happened to him. This is where the informant said he'd be, Alex said nervously, glancing around as if expecting to see shadows moving. We need to be careful. The cartel won't like us being here. I know, Emily replied, her voice steady even though her stomach was a whirlpool of nerves. But I can't leave my brother behind. He needs us. They approached a rusty metal door, and Emily hesitated for a moment. Memories of Jake, the times they laughed together, fueled her resolve to move forward. With a determined gesture, she pushed the door open. The sound echoed in the empty space, sending a chill down her spine. Inside, the scene they encountered was desolate. Jake was tied to a chair, visible marks of abuse on his face. He looked thinner, his eyes weary, but when he saw Emily and Alex, a glimmer of hope sparked in his gaze. Emily! Jake exclaimed, trying to rise, but the ropes held him fast. What are you doing here? We're here to rescue you. What happened to you? Emily shouted, moving closer to him. We need to get out of here. No, you don't understand, Jake said, his voice weak but firm. It's much more complicated than it seems. They won't let you leave. Who are they? Alex asked, looking around, growing increasingly anxious. What do you know about the cartel? Jake took a deep breath, trying to gather his strength. I got involved with them. I thought I could walk away, but I couldn't. They wouldn't let me. I did this to protect you. Protect how? Emily questioned, confused and distressed. You're putting yourself in danger. What do you mean by that? Jake lowered his head, guilt weighing heavily on his shoulders. I turned myself in to the cartel, Emily. They forced me to do it. If I didn't obey, they threatened you. I didn't want anything to happen to you. Emily felt as if the ground was crumbling beneath her. Jake, that doesn't make sense. You were trying to escape this life. Why would you do something like this? Because I had no choice. Jake shouted, frustration spilling from his voice. They told me if I didn't do what they said, you and Mom and Dad would be in danger. I couldn't take that risk. Alex, who had been listening in silence, finally spoke up. We need to get out of here, Jake. We can't stay. The cartel will be back any minute. They already know you're here, Jake said, anxiety intensifying. You have no idea what's at stake. My mistakes, they cost everything. And now, you're in danger because of me. We can't leave you here, Jake. We'll find a way to free you, Emily exclaimed, scanning the room for something she could use to free him. But before she could make a move, the door suddenly swung open, and an imposing figure appeared. It was one of the cartel's thugs, a muscular man with a cold expression, who quickly assessed the situation. Look who we have here, he said with a sardonic smile, revealing sharp white teeth. Did you think you could just walk away so easily? Panic surged through Emily. Jake, hide, she screamed, but it was too late. The man lunged forward, and Emily's heart raced in her chest. The only thing she could think of was that she needed to save Jake, no matter the cost. The tension in the air was palpable as Emily and Alex maneuvered through the warehouse, darkness swallowing their cautious steps. Emily's heart pounded wildly, her thoughts echoing the distant sounds of deep, threatening voices. It was in this grim location that she would finally understand the extent of the lies surrounding her family. When Emily first laid eyes on Jake, he was tied to a chair, his eyes vacant and his face haggard. Her heart ached at the sight of her brother, who had always been her protector, now at the mercy of the cartel. "Jake!" she shouted, rushing toward him. Alex followed, but the urgency propelled her forward, ignoring the risks. "Emily, no," Jake warned, forcing himself to look at her. "You shouldn't be here. It's dangerous." His voice was weak, but concern was evident. "I don't want you to get hurt. I came to save you," Emily replied, determination resonating in her tone. "But first, we need to understand what happened. What did you do, Jake? Why did you turn yourself into them?" The need for answers consumed her. "Because I wanted to protect you," Jake responded, frustration pouring from his words. "I had no choice. The cartel was threatening the family, and I couldn't let anything happen to you. I thought that if I turned myself in, they would leave us alone." At that moment, Emily's eyes widened, and a wave of despair washed over her. "You can't be serious. You put yourself in danger to protect us? Jake, you didn't have to do that." The weight of guilt hit her like a blow. "I thought you were just lost. That you were stepping away from crime." "I was trying to get out, but I couldn't," Jake shouted, pain evident in his eyes. "And then I discovered something that terrified me. The cartel isn't just any group, Emily. They have deep connections with our family." His words hit her like a punch to the stomach. "What do you mean by that?" Emily asked, fear and confusion swirling within her. Jake looked down, as if battling with his own revelations. "Our dad, he has dealings with them. He used my situation as a pawn in his plans. He was trying to protect himself, manipulating everyone around him." The revelation left her in shock. "That can't be true. My dad. He's always been the hero of our story." Emily was in denial, but the pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place, and reality consumed her. In that instant, Alex, who had remained silent, found his courage. "Emily, we need to get out of here. This isn't safe." But Emily was paralyzed, caught in a struggle between loyalty to her family and the urgency to save her brother. "No, Alex," Emily shouted, her gaze locked on Jake. "I can't let this go unresolved. We need to expose the truth, no matter what it means for us." Jake looked at her with a mix of fear and hope. "If you do this, they're going to kill you, Emily. And our family. Everything we know will come crashing down." "I can't live with this lie," Emily replied, her voice steady but her heart racing. "I choose to save you, Jake. I can't let you sacrifice yourself for something my father did." The tension escalated as cartel members began to enter the warehouse, their menacing silhouettes highlighted by the dim light. "What's going on here?" one of the men demanded, his gravelly voice echoing in the space. Emily had only a moment to decide. "Alex, help me free Jake." She lunged toward her brother, but before they could act, one of the cartel men surrounded them. "You shouldn't be here. We need answers," Emily shouted, adrenaline propelling her forward. "We're not letting you take my brother." At the emotional climax of the situation, Emily turned to Jake. "I love you, and I won't let you pay for mistakes that aren't yours." In an act of courage, she lifted her chin and prepared to expose the truth about her father and the cartel, willing to dismantle her family's facade, even if it meant losing everything. "Let's get out of here," Alex whispered, pulling her away from the impending danger. But Emily knew the battle was just beginning, and the fight for the truth would lead her down a path of unexpected consequences and disturbing revelations.